Welcome, everybody. It's Kevin Adam from the Triple Option here for a little instant reaction after the Sunday night loss to Notre Dame in overtime, 41-38. We're just going to kind of give our initial thoughts post game, what we saw, and kind of our takeaways. And then we're going to break the film down later on this weekend and give that to you guys too. So, yeah, Kev, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start with the offense. What were your thoughts from the offense?
Yeah, I thought, for all the talk of Jordan Travis progression, I really thought he looked regressed tonight.
Mm,
And I know early, there was a lot of pressure. They were bringing a lot of interior pressure, which you kind of described on your game preview earlier this week to kind of expect. So I thought that started the trend of kind of him getting some skittish, happy feet, and it just really never went away. I thought he threw one really bad ball that Hamilton picked. The second pick I didn't think was terrible on his part. Hamilton made an amazing play. You're not accounting for that kid
yeah,
who's lined up on the opposite hash, coming all the way across the field and making a play like that. That was just a special play by a special player. Um, in general, though, I mean, his legs weren't a huge factor on the night. Didn't do it. He just didn't pull the trigger in the passing game, which you really needed him to do when guys were open. Did hit a couple shot plays, which was great. Um, Gave him a chance, obviously, but yeah, the O line's still a factor of of sorts. Had three guys go down injured tonight. We'll see what that looks like moving forward. If any of those guys are going to be back, what the extent of those injuries are. The running game was phenomenal, though. I mean,
yeah, looked great.
yeah. So I mean, as much as we're going to talk about the O line not holding up necessarily in some passing situations, as far as the run game, they were phenomenal. I really thought, especially in the second half, Notre Dame was willing to sit there in that three man front and try to bring that backer. They just really gashed them.
Yeah.
We'll get into some of the formational stuff later on, but yeah, go ahead. I mean, I want to hear from you.
Yeah, so I think I agree a lot on the Jordan Travis stuff, but I think expectations should have been pretty limited with the passing game. You can fix the form all you want, but for a kid like him right now, the trouble isn't form. The trouble isn't accuracy necessarily, although he did struggle with that. The
Mm-hmm.
trouble is that on those passes over the middle, you have to see them before they're open, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just not. He's not processing that quick enough, and you hope that he can make up for it with his legs, but more often than not, against a defense as disciplined and talented as Notre Dame's, you just kind of saw that being neutralized. And I liked the move to the second half, running the ball more often, being more aggressive, going wildcat more often. Even when McKenzie was brought into the game, they were running the ball first, second down. They weren't trying to rely on him throwing the ball. But if anything, the fact that he was a threat to throw the football made those running lanes open. It definitely helped. And
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on McKenzie, but before that, I just want to just say, like, that kid had a heck of a game. He didn't do anything uh, spectacular, and I don't think that he's the kind of kid that does, but he does everything right, and that is spectacular, right? So like he throws the ball away when he needs to. He makes the completions. His anticipation and that part of the game that Jordan Travis struggles in, he might be the best player in the country at. And even watching Clemson and Georgia play yesterday, their quarterbacks struggled with that. Like that is an advanced thing that only great quarterbacks are able to do. And unfortunately for McKenzie, because of injury concerns and size concerns, I don't think he'll be that at the next level. But right now, when we need him at Florida State, I think that anticipation, that mental IQ, can really set him apart from kind of a lot of other quarterbacks.
Yeah, I agree with you. The throw to Helton, what should have been a targeting call on the Notre Dame linebacker who speared him right in the chin with his helmet, the crown of his helmet.
Yep.
That was an anticipation throw. We saw a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the in overtime, he tried to get the ball to LT out of the backfield on I don't want to call it an error route because that's confusing, but a little choice route that they had, and he came back into the middle of the field. Uh, that LT slipped. McKenzie had to pull the ball down.
Right.
You could see he was locked in on it. He knew it was there. He knew it was open. Was ready to throw it. And, made a nice play. He made a nice play throwing the ball out of bounds on the bad snap. Uh, I think the belief of the offense just kind of goes up when he's in there because he's got that confidence about him. He's got that gamesmanship about him. I don't want to make this seem like it's time to throw Jordan Travis to the wolves and get him out of there. He's still going to be an important piece of what you got because your offensive line is still a struggle. But yeah, I mean, Milton works the part of the field that you really need to be able to work to be successful and open up your run game,
Yeah.
which is that middle of the field. He puts linebackers in conflict differently than what Jordan Travis does because he does it with his arm and his ability to throw the ball with anticipation into tight windows in there. So, yeah, I mean, I think moving forward, you've got to give it serious consideration to go with Milton. You got to let him practice this week and see how that goes. But I think when push comes to shove, Milton's got to be your guy.
Yeah, and to people that might want to jump on Coach Norvell, there were some things he did in this game that you can definitely criticize him for and jump on him. And I don't really want to dive too deep into that because overall I think just the progress this team has made in the past year and a half since he's been here has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
But in his defense for the McKenzie Milton thing, if people want to say, hey, if he played the whole game, whatever, McKenzie genuinely is one of those players that looks so much better in game situations than he does in practice.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these things like throwing the ball away to keep a drive going is something that doesn't necessarily translate in a practice situation when you're not going full contact, the lights aren't on. And so by all accounts, McKenzie wasn't as successful in practice as Jordan Travis. And to go with Jordan Travis and stick with him was a decision Norvell made, and I think there was justification behind it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we know that Jordan far outperformed McKenzie in practices this fall. We also know that McKenzie was battling some different things and missed some time. So,
Right.
I mean, all those things play a factor. I think it's a fresh, it's a clean slate at this point. We're going to see what they do. As far as decisions, there is one I want to touch on. I think people are going to be obviously pointing to the fourth down decision inside their own 30, going for it. I've been back and forth on it. I was pretty livid in the moment, but I think when you step back and you see what Mike's trying to build with this program, he's preached this all-in winning type of mindset, and I think that play call and that decision there kind of encapsulates that.
Yep.
Of he knew they needed to really the things were slipping away. They needed an opportunity to go for it. They were in a decent situation. They had a decent play call. I think if Milton's in there, he might hit it because he throws the ball with the same anticipation out to McDonald.
Yep.
Jordan unfortunately doesn't. I would have liked to maybe seen a run play there. Give Jordan a chance. But it's neither here nor there. The mindset, though, of what Mike's trying to build is what is important. And I think maybe in 3 or 4 years we might see a different call there. But he's trying to win games. He's trying to win games. He's trying to create that mindset and that culture in that locker room. I think it goes a long way. I think it can't be lost that that's what they're really trying to get to.
Okay, let's move on to defense before we take up too much time.
Yep.
So, what general thoughts?
A lot of passing yards, but they did what they executed what they wanted to do. They wanted to make Jack Cohn beat them. Jack Cohn did beat them.
He had a great game.
He had a great game. You got to tip the cap to him. Guys made one-on-one plays, and Florida State did. Travis J, unfortunately, lost out on too many one-on-one balls. One in the end zone, one down
against
the field
good
against
receivers. These are probably some of the better receivers he'll face all year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure they're top 2 or top 3. Kevin Austin's obviously the real deal. I mean, the Notre Dame people have been trying to say it, whether we wanted to believe it or not, based on last year's numbers, a different story. But you dominated the run game. I mean, they really did. They dominated the run game.
They looked fantastic.
Yeah.
Never
and they were able,
guess that.
Yeah, and they were able to do it with 4, 5, and 6 guys. It wasn't, as the play started, and then as it developed, they were able to get a lot of hats to the football. Jermaine Johnson made a bigger impact today than any defensive end last year. Keir Thomas the same. The
Yes.
interior rotation looked good. You got some good snaps out of Jarrett Jackson. The linebackers are still concerned, and that's where you found yourself in trouble again. I
Just
do want
wide
to,
open. Just
yeah,
wide open.
I do want to tip the cap to Kalen DeLoach, though. Yeah, that's a young man who I think a lot of people had left for dead. People were talking about him maybe transferring and all that stuff. I really thought he stepped up tonight. I really thought he kind of showed himself to be a guy you're maybe going to be able to build that room around moving forward. Maury Gaynor showed some toughness in the run game. So as I'm burying the linebacker group because it wasn't great, especially in coverage. I thought that they did make progress tonight,
Right.
especially in the run game, which is where we needed to see it start, and we'll move from there.
Yeah, I want to echo the sentiment of the defensive line because watching the game, that's the thing that most stands out, right? The defensive line, without the performance they put in, that game isn't necessarily close.
Yeah.
They got pressure on third downs. They stopped up the run with minimal help from the linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
These transfers we brought in, Keir Thomas and Jermaine Johnson, at the time were big deals, but I don't think we realized just how much that changes the complexity of this defense. For me, there were a few things, especially at the beginning of the game, complete coverage busts, where we're going to talk about this more when we have more time to look at the film itself. So join us later this week for that. But complete coverage bust. A couple of plays where there was one I can think of where a motion happened and DeLoach wasn't aware of his responsibility.
Yep.
So just little things like that where you can tell that they're still young. They're still making these beginner mistakes. But the fact that they brought Notre Dame to overtime, and Notre Dame brought their A game. This was not a sloppy performance by Notre Dame with lots of turnovers. Florida State turned the ball over more than Notre Dame, 3-0,
Yep.
and still brought them to overtime.
Yeah.
So if you take away turnovers, Florida State played the better game. They played a solid game, and I think the defense was a huge part of that. And the defensive line, without a doubt, was the largest part of that.
Yeah, I know people are going to want to fire Adam Fuller, but I've got to tip my cap to him.
Incredible job from my perspective.
Way to come back. Way to have a great game plan. Way to stick to that game plan. Way to have your guys bought in, ready. Communication was an issue early. You talk about the Michael Mayer touchdown that was a blown assignment. Travis J jumps running back. Should have stayed with Mayer down the field. Should have had a backer. I think it was DeLoach on the running back. They screwed that one up. But I thought as the game went on, that communication got better. DeLoach really took charge of things in the middle of the field at linebacker, started getting guys in position. Would have liked to seen Jamie Robinson in the whole game. Obviously, he was suspended for the first half because of a stupid targeting call when he was at South Carolina. But I do want to tip my cap to Adam Fuller. I thought that's a guy that's been under fire. He clearly had them bought in, ready to go. They executed the game plan. Jack Cohn beat you. Good receivers beat you one-on-one down the field. Tip your cap.
You just made Notre Dame beat you with a kicker, a transfer quarterback, and some unknown wide receivers that are going to be known pretty soon. So
Yep.
I love the defensive game plan. I thought execution was shaky, but if you've watched other games from around the country, there's about 3 defenses that didn't have major communication issues this weekend. It's just the nature of the game when it comes to week 1. We'll see how that progresses as time goes on. Special teams were definitely a disappointment. The running of the kicker, I think, was a slightly fortunate call, even if it was the correct one.
Yeah.
Missed extra point cost us the game. Missed field goal cost us overtime. I can't blame the kid for that. He made a huge kick that brought us to overtime. You'd like to see him make that kick, but you can't. If you want to win those big games, you can't put it on the shoulders of a kicker.
Yeah. I mean, it's just where we see Florida State shortcomings. So, we're going to talk about all that more. We're going to get out of here because this is an instant reaction. It's supposed to be a little bit shorter. We've obviously rambled and talked a lot. So, join us this week. We're going to be sitting down. We're the only podcast, the only video cast, whatever you want to call us, that's going to be able to put the film up in the background and actually sit down and talk about what's going on. So that's a benefit to what we bring on the triple option. Hope you guys join us. Be looking for that real soon. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, hit the Patreon, all that stuff. We'll see you
And
later.
and
Oh,
before
go
we
ahead.
head out, I just want to say one thing. We lost that game, but I could not be more proud of the effort and the energy that was put on that field tonight. And
Yeah. And
um,
in the stands. And in the
yeah, in the
stands.
stands.
Yeah.
So message to all those fans out there: keep showing up, keep trusting in this process, because I think we saw tonight that it has taken a step forward.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. They're heading in the right direction.
All
All right,
right,
guys. Go
yep,
Knowles.
go Knowles.